In a society where sexual images and the pursuit of sex have become so mainstream, nowhere is this more evident than in music videos.
When people look at music videos, it gives us this impossible, absolutely impossible image that we're supposed to live up to. And only when we can live up to that will we be as sexy and desired and loved as what is seen in movies and music videos. And so we'll never reach that place, so we're never really worthy of being loved, so we're never really worthy of living life to the full.
If it was some average-sized people in a music video, no one's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like they're gonna see it on TV, and they're gonna be like, okay, whatever, switch channel right away.
Their clothes, their makeup, their dance moves, stuff like that.
I think that one of the most dangerous things, too, is not how this affects women, but how this affects guys. Because when guys start to expect every girl to look like they do on the music videos, I mean, how are they going to treat their wives and their girlfriends and just the women in their lives? Because they're not going to look like that unless they have major plastic surgery done or unless they're an abnormal, probably unhealthy person.
Short, skirts, up
short
to there.
Skirts or really
so you
short
can see,
shorts.
Like they're shorter
Huge
than their
shoes
underwear.
and then really tiny shirts.
Not only there's this completely unattainable concept of what it means to be a woman being presented in those videos, but also this unattainable concept of what it means to be a man. It's insane because it sends this message that if you're a real man, you have tons and tons of money, you got tons and tons of diamonds, you don't give a shit about your community, you sing about things that are absolutely materialistic, and you're surrounded by women all the time who want to do nothing but stand around in string bikinis and dance by your poolside.
In order to understand how our perception of a woman's body got to the point where it is today, we need to take a look at how women have been portrayed throughout history. One of the earliest recorded images of a woman's body is a stone statue from 15,000 BC. This statue of a woman had a rounder, larger body, which was valued because in a time of hunting and gathering, food was scarce and extra body fat was essential for survival. As we move into the 1800s, the ideal body image for women was fleshy, pale, white skin. The fleshiness signified having enough food to eat, and the pale white skin signified not having to work under the hot sun. This body image was idealized because it was thought to represent wealth and prosperity. During the Victorian era, a woman's beauty was based on the size of her waist. Women used corsets that were cinched so tight it made it difficult for them to breathe and eat.
Woo! Just hold on and suck in.
Some women went so far as to have their lower ribs removed in order to achieve a very unrealistic but idealized waist size. The 1920s saw the onset of the flapper girl image, in which the focus on a woman's hips and bust were minimized and more masculine features were sought after. This change of image likely resulted from the early stages of the feminist movement, as well as the need for women to take on more masculine roles in society in order to support the war effort. By the end of the Second World War, women became less involved in the workforce. As a result, the ideal woman was seen as curvaceous and well-suited for staying at home and raising a family. Women such as Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor were considered sex objects at the time, even though now they would be considered overweight by today's standards. Our current obsession with thinness can be traced back to the 1960s. Most notable was the emergence of Twiggy, a British fashion model who was 5'7" and 100 pounds, despite the average model from that era being 5'6" and 130 pounds. It is interesting to note that Twiggy later admitted to suffering from an eating disorder. This idealization of an extremely thin body image continues until today. In the 1980s, the focus expanded to include the pursuit of a very young appearance. Adolescent girls started being used to sell clothing and makeup for older women. What we have today is the pursuit of an ideal body image that is physically impossible for women to achieve. Tiny waists with large breasts, looking older and sophisticated while maintaining the skin of a teenager, having an adolescent body while exuding the sexuality of an adult woman, being thin with an overly curvy body, and aspiring to have physical features that can only be acquired through cosmetic surgery.
When we look at that image in the media, it's typically tall, it's typically very lean. It's very much sort of could be labeled as an ectomorph body type. And that body type basically suits about 5% of the population naturally are born that way. More likely, somebody is to be a mesomorph body type. So about 80% or so of the population is a mesomorph. And with that body type, there's a lot of upper body strength. It's a body type that typically gains muscle fairly easily. The other sort of third main body type is what's called endomorph, and about 15% of the population are endomorphs. And that's sort of the body type where muscle development is not as easy to come by, sort of laying down fat is. And typically those people are without waist. They gain weight or sort of carry weight around the middle, that apple body shape. People don't think that their weight sometimes is unchangeable or their body size. The reality is a mesomorph is a mesomorph and an endomorph is an endomorph. And you can do some behaviors to sort of change the look of that body type, but it is always a meso or an endomorph. So in truth, those images that we see in the media, very few of us can achieve.
Why does the media bombard us with images and beliefs that try to convince us otherwise?
Kids are branded right from the beginning, where you see kids that have logos on their little sleepers and their little diaper shirts. We have TV programming that happens, for babies. And in truth, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out probably 3 or 4 years ago now and said that no child under 2 should actually be exposed to any TV images. But still, Baby Einstein and Teletubbies and a variety of other shows are out there sort of making programming for kids. So right from birth, we're actually sort of geared in to images in the media sort of as telling us truth and guiding us in our life. And we have a real responsibility to teach kids that the media is not our friends. They're there to, in many ways, to sell us. I'm thinking more commercial media, but they're there to sell us in terms of a product or an idea. And sometimes that idea might be creating something that will be a norm in our society.
I think it's addictive because we really can't get away from it because it's on the computer, it's on the TV, it's in magazines, in books even. And on everything we watch or do, we see it around everywhere.
And the people who make those shows and the ads and the flyers and the magazines, they know that. They know that it's addicting. And that's why they keep doing it, because they know that we can't stop.
Yeah, they want you to get addicted to it, so you keep wanting to watch these shows or look at these magazines.
Within our society, there's this endeavor to have young men and women adhere to a certain body image because at the end of the day, there's money to be made in that. There's products to be sold to make us more beautiful. And I think young people need to step back from that and recognize it for what it is. And when they can do that, they see the bullshit that's underlying in it. And, it's pretty hard to buy into something where you feel like you're being hoodwinked.
We're supporting their company by buying more magazines, so we're telling them we like these, keep making them so we can read them, and they like that because we buy them. And they send out negative images of women and send out negative thinking, and we just follow that.
They'll only change when we change.
I think it takes more than just not having thin stars on TV or whatever. I think girls need to feel confident and good about who they are, no matter what they look like and no matter what they do, and to be able to develop other things to show that they have value.
I think when we're looking at this issue of female body image, we can't just look at it from a media perspective, and there's this big bad media out there that's giving women these ideas of what they should be aspiring to. We have to look at it from a community level. We have to look at it, the message that we're giving to young women, as well as the message that we're giving to young men, not just within the media, but within our whole entire culture, within the schools, within the families, within our community as a whole.
I personally don't think I could give up magazines, because even though you think that they're setting a bad example and that you shouldn't be looking at that because, well, it's just useless and you don't need it, I want to look at the magazines, and I don't think you can't stop something unless you truly actually want to. That I like looking at magazines, and I like watching my trashy shows.
I think there's a very large misconception for people with eating disorders, in that it often is viewed as a quick fix. Just eat and you'll be better. I think there's an aspect, there's kind of the unwritten, I guess, treatment planning, phrase people say is vitamin F. You just need to eat food, vitamin F, and that's a part of it. It's a piece of recovery and treatment. It's a gateway to having somebody's mind be healthier. But the thinking doesn't necessarily change with weight restoration. And so oftentimes it's when a person has restored weight or gotten to a more nourished physical state, that they're then able to cognitively do some of the work that led to the cause of an eating disorder. And oftentimes that's the hardest parts of therapy.
People would always tell me, I'm going to shove food down your throat if you don't eat, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, that's not helpful. Like, not even in the slightest bit. It doesn't even give the illusion that you care about me,
Just because they've restored weight and are looking good or healthy to our standards, that they're feeling actually worse than ever. They are more resistant to treatment than ever, and that they're really scared. They feel really terrible about themselves, and their self-esteem actually might be lower than it was prior. So it's almost completely the opposite. So when somebody's doing better, in my mind, healthier, they could be actually doing worse and at higher risk for self-harming, for relapse, for stepping out of treatment, those kinds of things. So I think that's when we really, I think it's really important to step up the care actually in those instances as well, to give the support, because it isn't a quick fix.
Well, I was unhappy all the time. I totally forgot what it was like to be happy, and I really missed that. And, there was just a time where I broke down and I could not stop crying, and I was like, I miss being happy. Like, why? What's different? Why am I not happy anymore? Why is being thin not doing what I wanted it to do? Yeah, and when I finally realized that I was sickly skinny, just those two things combined were what made me want to change. For the most part, when I was sick, I was devoid of emotions. I really didn't care what happened at all. But then when I started to eat again, it was like my emotions and my feelings and just my mind went kind of haywire. No, they did go haywire. I felt extremely suicidal, and I just felt gross and fat all of the time because I was eating a lot of food. And I hated how I felt and how I looked, and I was just so anxious all the time. And I was all the time I wanted to kill myself, basically.
I'll take